Hey Con, you should start a podcast because you talk for a living and it would be cool to listen to. Whoever said that, you were probably right. Welcome in, everybody. My name's Connor. You can call me Conman, you can call me Con, and I've been a pro wrestling content creator since 2012, and I've been in the wrestling space since 2016. Some call me the OG of pro wrestling reactions, and that would probably be pretty accurate. One of those guys who started doing it a long time ago before TikTok started blowing up, before Instagram started blowing up, and that you see all these great streamers today on Twitch and YouTube. I was one of those guys that started off right from the get-go talking about pro wrestling back when WWE even had their shows streaming on YouTube. Now, granted, it wasn't allowed. It was certainly against the law, but people would literally stream the entire show on YouTube, and there would be no reactions, no commentary, no nothing, just the straight show. And I was one of those people who decided to hop on and start talking about it in live time alongside of the show. No actual video on the screen, just my reactions. And somehow this format has blown up into what it is here today, where we now have over 173,000 followers on YouTube, over 190,000 followers on TikTok, and growing in the Twitch and Instagram space. It's really crazy to see where we've come from, and I can't wait to see what the future holds. But this podcast here is going to be about my life, what it is that I like, what my interests are, what I like about pro wrestling, what I don't like about pro wrestling, and then just random junk like trying to name the podcast. And that's how I want to start things off right here, because I asked you guys during a live stream, I asked you on Twitter, I asked you during another live stream after that, what are some names for this podcast? Because we could literally name it anything, but the IWC showed that they are not the most creative bunch here, because I want you to take a look at what these names were that you guys submitted to me over the last 2 weeks. You guys came up with Podman167. You came up with the Con Factor. Those two are not great. They're not the best names by any way that you want to measure it. It's just really, I'm not a fan of those ones. But what I'm going to ask you guys here during this podcast, what I'm going to ask from all of you is just to give me your best name suggestions in the comments, and the ones that have the most thumbs ups is going to be the winner. And that's what we're going to name the show. But take a look at some of these. My buddy, my pal, Minerva, Mini Portable, who, by the way, Mini, I am so sorry. Okay, I met Mini at TwitchCon, and I put everybody over that I met at TwitchCon, and we'll talk more about TwitchCon here today. But I put everybody over that I met, whether it be Santi, whether it be Wheezy, whether it be Tesh, whether it be Bridget, whether it be Sancho West, whether it be Girls Play TV. I put them all over. And I forgot to mention Minnie. Minnie is one of the sweetest people in the world. It was a pleasure getting to meet her. And I promised her that this first episode would be entirely dedicated to her. So shout out to Mini Portable. Great wrestling reactions. But some of these other names that you guys submitted. Look at this. Freaking 10 Count Media over here saying the 167 Podman. It's just not going to happen. JD from New York saying Conman Chronicles, it's a con life. Also, JD, not going to happen, dude. But also, everybody be asking, what is it going to be about? And I'm sure some of you watching right now are like, what the hell am I listening to? Am I seriously about to invest some time into this show? Yeah, you are. You're about to listen every single week that this drops, because this show is going to be all about Conman. It's going to be about my life. I'm going to talk about things that are going on. I'm getting married in a year. I've got lots of traveling coming up. I've got a beautiful, beautiful fiance at home, and managing that life between content creation and personal life is a big challenge, but it's something that I'd like to share with you guys, and maybe it will help some other people out at home. I'm also a pro wrestling fan. I'm a football fan. I'm a hockey fan. I'm a guy who loves sports, and I'm going to talk about the sports. The Toronto Maple Leafs begin their season pretty soon, and I need an outlet to be able to talk and bitch and moan about the Leafs, because oh my God, it is so difficult being a Leafs fan. I also need an outlet to bitch and moan about being a Browns fan, because let me tell you, it is one of the most difficult, hard things in this world to not only just be a Leafs fan, but be a Leafs fan and a Browns fan. The amount of pain that I suffer every single year by choosing these damn teams. But I need an outlet. I need a place to bitch. I need a place to talk about my thoughts. And that is the whole reason why I started this podcast. I feel like I have been doing YouTube and Twitch and TikTok and Instagram and content creation for so long that this is just the natural progression here for me. I love what it is I do. I love that I get to yap for a living, and adding in an extra half hour, 40 minutes, an hour, whatever it may be to get the thoughts out of my brain is going to be incredibly helpful for me. And hopefully you at home are going to enjoy the journey that we go on. We're going to play little stupid games. I'm going to have my editor come up with some things, like whether it be a guess the wrestler thing or you name it. I'm sure we're going to have a lot of fun with it in due time. But I do want to get back to some of these names, because look at these names. Look at some of these names. Khan's Corner. Hang on. There's a story behind Conman's Corner. I told you I've been doing this a long time. I don't want to take away from what this podcast is going to be, but just take a look right here as I direct myself to what Conman's Corner actually was all those years ago when I made it. It was a stupid idea from bad creative, but hopefully you'll get a bit of a laugh. Welcome to Conman's Corner, the show where we do something random. Today, we're drawing a stick man. That was Conman's Corner. Thanks for watching. So we're not calling it Conman's Corner. There's a reason for that, okay? I don't know what I was thinking when I made that video all those years ago, but that gives you a little bit of an insight here to how long I've been doing content creation. I can't believe I started doing this when I was 17 years old. Way back when I started doing Minecraft content, it evolved into pro wrestling, but I've been here forever. I'm now 29. I'm 29 years old, man. I'm almost 30. And I grew up on the internet, man. And I still can't get a good damn podcast name. Like, look at these 167 cons. Like, what is that? 167 topics. What is that? Podman. Okay, what are we doing here? Con in 60 minutes. Pros and cons. Actually, you know what? That's not too bad, is it? The pros and cons. Actually, you know what? Hang on. That might be a bit of a front runner. There's also these down here. The Conman's Clutch. Count out with Conman. The Conman Shoot. Hard no. Conman with a chance of meatballs is wild. Oh god, there's a lot of options here. Conman's Wrestling Corner. No. Wrestling Rebellion with Conman. No. The Conman Slamcast. Hard no. The 167 Powerbomb Podcast. What the hell? The Heel Turn with Conman. Conman's Suplex Society. The 167 Wrestling Breakdown. Conman's Kayfabe Chronicles. Ringside Rants with Conman. 167 Pro. I'm not even going to click show more. Like, these are the names that I got suggested to me. I don't know what we're going to call it, but that is the only fair way that I think I can go about this, is again letting you guys in the comments be the dictator as to what this podcast is going to be called. So choose wisely, vote wisely, but I need your help. Name this podcast. Oh my God. I look forward to next week when we can read it out. We'll actually officially name the pod. But I've rambled on here for about 8 minutes already, and I haven't really given you much of substance here. So I want to give you a little bit of something. Let's talk about TwitchCon and my very first experience there. It was just incredible. I flew down to San Diego for TwitchCon, and I was fortunate enough to go with some amazing people. Wheezy Blonde, another great streamer. Santi Zap, another great streamer. These guys have been great mentors to me, and I've learned a lot in such a short period of time from them. But going to TwitchCon, being in that atmosphere, walking around, being amongst other creators, getting to go up to the partner lounge and talk to other partners was just one of the most amazing experiences that I could have possibly had as a creator. Like I said, I've been doing this a long time. Been doing this a really, really long time, and most of my content creation years were spent in a room in front of a computer screen, as most creators start out, right? But for me, getting to actually go out of the house, talk to other creators in real life, sit on a wrestling panel, by the way, which was just what? How is this real life? We had a room full of 50, 60, maybe 70 people come in and support us there. A room full of people for pro wrestling is just amazing at a gaming convention nonetheless. Like, TwitchCon isn't meant for pro wrestling fans. It's not like it's a Fanatics Fest or anything like that. It is for Twitch streamers, but Granted, the wrestling space has grown quite a bit over the last few years, and Twitch has completely embraced it. Shout out to all the great creators, right? Like, getting to go there and hang out with Mr. Tesh was a lot of fun. Getting to go there and meet Sancho West for the very first time was amazing. I was lucky enough to meet the girls from Girls Play TV. Alicia is incredible. We also have so many other people we ran into. Bridget, she is an incredible individual who does a lot of great work for DraftKings as well. And I learned that she's got a sloth TikTok channel where she literally dresses up as a sloth and does like these dance moves. Like, I don't want to just ramble here, but like, look at this. The sloth. Only Sloths is what it's called. And it is one of the funniest things that I've ever seen. She literally goes around in a sloth costume, dancing. That's Bridget. And we went out to lunch. We grabbed some tacos while we were down there in San Diego, and she had the sloth costume in a bag next to her. It was just there. You could see the sloth head. And of course I had to ask, what the hell is that? And that is when I found out that she does those sloth videos. It floored me. I was laughing so hard I couldn't believe that was a thing. But like, kudos to her. What is that? She's sitting at 1.8 million followers on TikTok because of the Only Sloths content. That is just, it's amazing to see. So shout out to Bridget, and shout out to everybody that I met there as well. I ran into some great brands, and hopefully eventually we'll be able to work together as well. And I met some incredible people behind the scenes. So TwitchCon was one of those things that was a dream for me. I never thought that I would actually go to one, and I certainly didn't think I would go to one as like a speaker. To be a part of that to be a part of that panel was just, it was really, really cool for me. And it feels like the next 2 years, there's going to be some big things in store, whether it be for this channel or whether it be pro wrestling as a whole, because pro wrestling is in such a good state right now. We are loving what we're seeing on TV, and we've got great things on the horizon. All these different network switches, with Raw going to Netflix, and then also SmackDown coming to USA Network, and NXT going to the CW Network. There's a lot of change happening in pro wrestling, but where there's change, there's usually growth. And I believe WWE as a whole is going to grow quite a bit over the next little bit. Netflix isn't being talked about enough for how important it's going to be, especially for international viewers, because I'm lucky enough to be from Canada, and we get Raw, SmackDown, and NXT plus premium live events all on Netflix. We don't have to go watch on different networks. We don't have to go flip through the channels or anything like that. We literally get it all on Netflix once it switches on over in the new year. To me, and to like the UK viewers and the Australian viewers and the rest of the world, that is an amazing thing to say. Now, I actively don't have Netflix right now. I'm one of those few people who doesn't actually have Netflix in their home because I have like so many other different subscriptions, whether it be Crave, whether it be Disney Plus, Amazon Prime. Like, I'm tired of having all these different subscriptions, and Netflix, to me, I just don't watch enough of it. So it's something that I canceled about a year and a half ago. Also, it was around that time when they stopped allowing like multiple homes, and so it didn't make much sense for me to have it anymore for how little I watch it. It made sense when I was able to pay for it for my parents, or when they were able to pay for it for a little bit there as well. Like, that made sense, but not anymore. Now, though, that WWE is getting all this stuff on Netflix, you know that they're going to get my money. You know that I'm going to buy Netflix, and I'm going to re-up my subscription and be watching all the great content that they're going to produce over there. But I'm very excited for what the future holds with Netflix, and I think that we're in for a treat as wrestling fans. The next little bit, though, I got to admit I'm nervous. All right, and this podcast isn't necessarily just going to be wrestling, rambling talk. It's literally about whatever comes to my brain. But I am a little bit nervous here for what's going to happen when Raw goes to 2 hours. We talked about this in the Hot Takes video, and it might be a detriment to Monday Night Raw. It might be a bit of an issue with getting people on TV, like especially people who are like in the undercard. I think of people like Lyra Valkyria, the Life of the Party, the PFC. I know I'm naming the women's division, but I do think the women's division is going to take a big hit, and it's not very fair that it's going to happen. But we are going to see a lot of changes to Monday Night Raw over the next few weeks, and it's either going to be a great show with a lot of great people getting lots of opportunity and then they're filtering talent in and out every other week, or it is going to start to feel like there's not enough time. And SmackDown is one of those shows that when I look at the 2 hours, I feel like there's just simply not enough time to tell the stories that they want to tell. Monday Night Raw has been cruising with 3 hours, but Friday Night SmackDown with 2, some people are saying it's a little repetitive, that they can't tell the stories that they need to tell. And even when they do get good in-ring action, it feels like it's cut short a little bit because they have time that they need to save. You're not going to see the LWO versus Judgment Day get 12 to 15 minutes anymore when Monday Night Raw moves to 2 hours, and that is a big issue as a whole. So we'll see. We'll see what the future holds for Monday Night Raw. Regardless, though, I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer. I love what pro wrestling is doing right now, whether it be Monday Night Raw, Friday Night SmackDown, NXT, whether it be everything going on in AEW, whether it's TNA and their great product that they've been rolling out, or the independent scene as a whole. Wrestling is so healthy right now, and it is very, very cool to be a pro wrestling fan. Like, you can actually tell people now, in real life, you can tell your friends that you watch pro wrestling and they won't laugh at you. Now, I come from a time where pro wrestling was never viewed as being cool. Like, the only time that I think pro wrestling was considered cool to me in my lifetime was from 2005 to 2006. And that's because we had a lot of young people in my grade 5 class who loved pro wrestling at the time, and they loved the theme music. In fact, that's how I got into pro wrestling. That's how I found it. They were playing Batista's theme song on the school bus, and I said, "Hey, can I listen?" And I was like, "Yeah!" I loved it, man. I went home that day and I downloaded some songs, and then I figured out how I could watch pro wrestling. My parents didn't like that. They really didn't like that, man. They were very quick to say, "You can't watch that." And I was very quick to reply with, "Want to bet?" So I threw that on every single chance that I could. But I remember, and sorry, Mom, sorry, Dad, if you happen to listen to this thing, but I can remember just turning the TV down in our little den that we had, turning it down to like level 1 or level 2 on the remote, and you could barely hear it. It was on the TV, but you couldn't really hear anything that was happening, just enough to get by. And every time I would hear footsteps coming towards that den, I had the remote in my hand lined up with Last Channel, and I would flip over to like either Sports Center, like TSN, or I'd flip over to the Family Channel or whatever it was that I had as the Last Channel, just so that they knew I wasn't watching pro wrestling. Eventually, I stopped doing it, and I can still remember the day when they found out that I was watching pro wrestling. It didn't go over well, but there's a reason as to why it didn't go over well, and I can understand now as I've gotten older why maybe my mom didn't want me watching this when I was 11 years old, because she walked down into the den as pro wrestling was on, and I didn't flip it over, and they were unveiling a Playboy cover for, I want to say it's Tori Wilson. I think that lines up for the timeline. They were literally unveiling a Playboy cover on Monday Night Raw. And my mom was like, "Why? What are you watching? You're not allowed to watch this." And I said, "But I love it." She's like, "Of course you do. There's a half-naked woman on the screen. But you're not allowed to watch this at 11 years old, all right? Turn that off." And from then, I just kept throwing it on, and I just didn't care anymore. You know, I was like, I love this show. I love the pro wrestling. You don't get it, Mom. It's not about the naked women, all right? It's about the naked women fighting. It's about the actual action in the ring. I can remember to this day, one of those moments that made me fall in love with pro wrestling was watching Jeff Hardy jump off the top of the steel cage onto Umaga. What a feud that was. That was my true, introduction to pro wrestling. I had seen it for years, but again, I was hovering over the channel changer, right? I was flipping back and forth, you know? We were obviously talking about it at school, whether it be John Cena versus Edge in that, I want to say TLC match at whatever it was in Toronto. Is it Unforgiven? Something like that. Whatever the match was, whatever pay-per-view that was between Edge and John Cena in Toronto. One of my buddies in grade 6 went to that show, and so obviously we were talking about it then. But my memory doesn't really remember WWE before 2008. Like, it does. Like, I can remember Shawn Michaels versus John Cena going for an hour on Monday Night Raw. I can remember a few things here and there. I don't know when Chuck Palumbo took out Jamie Noble, but that stands out in my brain for some reason. It's just one of those things that I'm like, I can't really remember what my first wrestling memory was. And as I go through the years, I look back and I'm like, okay, when is this memory from? And I Google it and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. I remember the Chris Benoit stuff that happened, the man who shouldn't be named. I remember when that all happened because I was sitting in front of the TV with my jaw dropped down to the floor because the week before, Vince McMahon literally exploded in a limo. He exploded. He went poof. And then next week he starts off the show just talking in the middle of the ring. There was an actual death. It was one of those moments that was just so surreal watching as a pro wrestling fan, and it stuck with me from an early age. But I always like to say that my first memory, my true first memory of a feud, of being involved in pro wrestling, is watching Jeff Hardy versus Randy Orton. That one just stands out, and that's like near the start of 2008. So clearly I was into pro wrestling at that point, and I don't think from that moment on I ever missed an episode of Monday Night Raw without recapping. You know, obviously, I played hockey growing up, so we had some games on Monday nights, and I played other sports. I played volleyball, I played lacrosse, I played baseball. I really did enjoy being a bit of an athlete. I ran track and field, I ran cross country. So I missed out on a lot of pro wrestling because either it was too late and I needed to go to bed because I had to wake up early for practice, or I had a game going on that night. So a lot of the times I recorded it on VHS and I would watch it the next day on Tuesdays, or sometimes even catch the replays on Tuesdays. If I missed it, I would go online, or I would find the Bleacher Report or whatever it was that I found. I don't even know how I actually stayed up to date with pro wrestling before like 2010, because I know that's when I started reading like the Bleacher Report. But before then, I don't know what it was that I did. I think I maybe just watched like a recap show. Like WWE used to actually air recap shows before SmackDown and before Raw. So that's probably how I kept up to date with things. In fact, I know that's how I kept up to date with pay-per-view results, because I couldn't watch them growing up. Again, my parents wouldn't buy me the pay-per-view, and rightfully so. They didn't have to. It was expensive. And for a kid who is just watching a TV show, they're like, yeah, no, we're not buying like the equivalent of a ticket for you to be able to sit down and watch the show. So a lot of the time I just recapped through whatever WWE's recap show was, and that's how I stayed up to date with WWE. It's something I've always loved. It's something that has been a massive part of my life without ever really realizing it was a massive part. But like, I go back through all those years, I never missed Raw. I like, if I did, I was taping it. And I certainly missed a lot of SmackDown, like Friday nights, Thursday nights, whatever they were. I missed them. I for sure did. But like Monday Night Raws, that was my jam, man. And what really got me into pro wrestling. I love the sport, and still to this day, I'm so incredibly fortunate that it's my job. But I know if it wasn't my job, I would still be watching. Maybe would I be a little out of the loop with some things because I would have another job that I would have to work? Absolutely. But I can't picture a world where Conman, Connor, doesn't watch pro wrestling. And I don't think I ever will stop watching it. It's something that I love, and it's the reason why I know you guys tune into the channel as well. Just been great. It's been a killer cool experience being a pro wrestling content creator, and I hope it continues to evolve, and I hope that I can continue to figure out ways to speak, because that's another thing that I don't talk about enough. I do struggle speaking. I have for a long time, and I've gotten so much better since I've been a creator, but talking and getting words out of my mouth without stumbling and messing up those words, it's been a struggle for me for years. Like, if we go back and we listen to some of my very early content, I was creating Minecraft content, and like the lisp that I seem to have and the stutter that I seem to have was very difficult to get past. And like, I never got diagnosed for anything. I never went to any speech school or speech classes or anything like that. I just kind of talked, and I continued to talk, and I learned how to talk into a microphone. And from there, I somehow lucked into this being my job. Now, granted, it didn't just come overnight. I did take broadcasting in university. Like, that's what I was in. Actually, let's dial that back a little bit. I started out at Brock University in sport management, and I was there for 2 years. And sport management, while it was fun, I didn't see a future in. I didn't see any direction for me to move in. Like, for a little bit when I first started sport management, I thought, I want to be the general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs. That's my future job. Like, Kyle Dubas literally came from the same program that I enrolled in at Brock University, the exact same school in the exact same program. And knowing that he was on his way to becoming a GM someday, I thought, well, I can do it too, man. No, I can't. I didn't have the drive. That's one thing that I really struggled with was in school. I didn't have the drive to go to those classes enough to be successful in the program. I didn't care enough about it. I found myself directing my attention towards content, making Minecraft videos from my dorm room. I ended up doing that a little too much, and I probably should have put a little more attention into my studies. But it is what it is, man. I just didn't see a future in sports broadcasting, or I didn't see a future in sport management of some sort. But I did see a future in my channel. I was like, I love what I do. I want to figure out how to be a better broadcaster. And so that's when I enrolled at Niagara College for broadcasting. And to this day, I am still incredibly proud of my time at Niagara College underneath the broadcasting program. It's a 3-year program that I only did 2 years of, because by the time we got to my second year, this thing right here, this whole YouTube thing was blowing up, and I knew that I just had an opportunity to either take it now or to miss out on that opportunity, and I decided to take it. But while I was in broadcasting, I almost gave up YouTube. I was very, very close because I really enjoyed the program. I enjoyed the film side of things. I enjoyed the television side of things, but I really, truly enjoyed radio. I thought that was going to be my future, and it's kind of making sense now how I got better speaking into a microphone, because I took radio classes and we did stuff in the studio, and I learned how to speak into a microphone. And it was one of those things that once you figure out, you're like, wow, this is really cool. I want to just yap away for a living. And so that eventually morphed into me starting a radio show. I did a radio show at Niagara College called The Backroad Spotlight. It was a country music show that highlighted Canadian country artists, their inspiration, and where, they came from. It was a really, really cool hour-long show. Like, for example, I focused on Shania Twain for this one episode and had about 12 songs of Shania Twain lined up with some of her different influences like Reba McEntire and yada, yada, yada. And it was a very, very fun show that I was very proud of. But again, I didn't see a future in it. I didn't see where I would go as a radio host. Like, you could travel all over to these small towns and broadcast from their local radio show, but like, is that what I was going to do for the rest of my life? Didn't feel like it was meant for me, man. And that's when I got back home, decided, hey, I want to do YouTube. I want to do this. This is my passion. This is my life. Being a content creator is what I want to do. And so I bet on myself. I said, I'm done after 2 years. I'm going to walk, and I am going to bet on myself and see if there's anything that I can grow. Now, that being said, I didn't necessarily just walk away from school completely at that point, because I knew if I was going to walk into this field right here, if I knew I was going to walk into becoming a content creator, I needed to have some sort of business knowledge. I needed to understand the business side of things, and so that's when I enrolled in my business course, and I did a year of business as well. And that was very beneficial. But by the end of that year, YouTube had completely popped off. I think I was over 100,000 subscribers at that point. And I said, all right, this is now. Let's focus 100% on this. And since then, I've never looked back. I've never stopped producing content. Ever since that day, this has been my full-time job, streaming Raw, SmackDown, NXT, pay-per-views, AEW for a long period of time there as well was in my mainstay of live streams. TNA was a thing that I streamed for quite a while. Independent shows like Eve Pro Wrestling, like Progress Pro Wrestling, and others, I streamed and I started to react to. And it was one of those things that I didn't know how big it was going to become, but it certainly started to explode. And I met some incredible people along the way, some incredible viewers that I still love to this day, that I appreciate for getting me through those early days. And for those of you listening to this podcast, you know who you are. Thank you guys for everything and for getting me through the really tough years to the point now where I'm so happy with my job. I'm so happy that I get to wake up and come downstairs, turn on this camera, and speak to it for a living. Some days are obviously difficult, right? Like, when you're your own boss, you have to have that drive, you have to have that passion, and you have to have that ability to say, hey, I don't want to record today, but I'm gonna. And that's where I'm at now. We've been doing daily videos on my YouTube channel for, well over 100 days at this point. And it's not going to slow down anytime soon. We've got this podcast now that is launching. And like, I can already tell this is so therapeutic for me. It's been a half hour I've been rambling. And I'm like, I feel so good. I don't know if it's going to turn out well. I don't know if the podcast is entertaining to listen to or whatnot. But hey, it's something that I just wanted to try and I wanted to experiment with. And that's probably one of the things I want to leave us with here today is, how do you get into content creation? How do you just feel comfortable enough to open yourself up to the world like this, right? How do you do that? And the easiest, simplest answer that I have is to not overthink things. I'm an overthinker, and a lot of the times when I overthink things, I end up talking myself out of it. I say all the reasons why I shouldn't do it as opposed to the reasons why I should. And that mindset shift has been a big thing that I've tried to incorporate over the last 4 months, 5 months. It's something I'm really trying to incorporate, and just trying new things, whether it be new video styles, whether it be this podcast right here, whether it be going out of my shell and meeting people in real life at TwitchCon, flying across the country to a state I've never been to before in California, and just putting myself out there, talking to brands, talking to whatever. It's something that isn't easy to do, but once you start doing it, once you tell yourself that you can, then it becomes a lot easier, right? All you got to do is try. All you got to do is start. You never know where it's going to go, right? I know for a fact when I was a kid at 17 years old starting my Minecraft YouTube channel, I know for a fact that wasn't going to be something I was starting because I thought it would be a job. I started doing it because it was fun. I started doing it because I loved it. And from there it grew. But then when I switched from Minecraft to wrestling, I didn't switch because I think, oh, well, this is where all the views are. I switched because I loved it. And I was like, I'm good at talking about pro wrestling, and I want to try to talk more about pro wrestling, and I want to see if I can grow myself as a pro wrestling content creator. That worked. Somehow, some way, here we are. It's crazy to actually think about, but the only thing that is different from me and you is that I started, right? I'm not this crazy charismatic individual. I'm not this dude with a large vocabulary that is going to be able to impress you with my big time words. I really am just an average dude who lucked into this incredible job, and I love what I get to do. And so I implore all of you guys to start. If you're thinking about content creation, if you're thinking about getting into something, whether it be a video game of your choosing, whether it be talking about pro wrestling, or if you're into Olympic swimming, or if you're into golf, or whatever it may be, if you want to start, just start. You're the only person that is stopping you from starting. And the sooner that you realize that, the sooner that you're going to be able to chase those dreams that you have. It took me a while to figure that out, man. It really did. But just try. That's all you can do is just try. And you never know what will end up happening. But before I leave you guys here today, I do want to talk about the type of content that we do have coming up, because there has been a lot of changes on this channel. The main Conman 167 channel that you see and you're listening to this on right now is going to be the original content channel. And what I mean by original content is I'm not doing reactions outside of my actual reaction live streams. I'm not going to be pulling up videos and reacting to them on this main channel, except for once a week. We still have a series that is running called the Finisher Mania series that is going to morph into something else. So you can continue to expect to see that on the main channel. But we did open up a second channel called Conman Reacts, and it is now good to go. We've already uploaded the first episode over there. And if you check out Conman 167 Reacts, it's a profile picture of me doing the double thumbs up. I look hella dorky, but it's fun. I don't care, whatever. So make sure you go subscribe to that, because if you like the reaction content on this main channel, you're going to really like it over there on Conman Reacts. And there's still so much coming. We are uploading daily original content, which is things like quizzes, challenges, hot takes, thoughts, predictions, you name it. Stuff like that is all 100% original content is on the main Conman 167 channel, and all the reaction content is over on Conman 167 Reacts. Very simple to find. Make sure you go check it out if you want to see some more reactions. And we also have a Patreon now, which is something I'm very, very proud of. I've uploaded 8 episodes of what's called the main event over there. And the idea of the main event is that you are able to follow along every single WWF to WWE main event pay-per-view match. We started at In Your House #1 back in 1995 and have rolled all the way through every pay-per-view up until In Your House #5 now. So we just finished that over on Patreon, and it's a very good watch. I'm having a lot of fun, and one thing that we're actually doing on top of it is we're tier ranking every single match that we watch. So by the end, the goal is to have a tier list that is just filled with a whole bunch of different matches through the years, and we can take a look at it and see what's S tier all the way down to F tier. It's a very, very fun series that I'm super proud of, and if you want to check it out, it's only $5 a month over on Patreon. But man, that pretty much does it here for me for my first week. Reminder, I want to know what we're naming this thing. Give me all your names down in the comments. The one with the most thumbs ups will be the winner. You guys could absolutely dictate the future of this podcast. If you're freaking calling it Podman167, if you're calling it the Art of Con, if you're calling it, God, what was that other one again? What was that first one? The Con Factor. If you guys are calling it those and that's what you truly, truly want, then by all means, drop that name down in the comments. But I'm a man of the people. I always said that I'm a man of the people, and I will listen to your recommendations, but holy hell, let me tell you, the ideas for the names were not great, and it's on you guys. It's out of my hands at this point. It's all on you. But thank you very much for listening, everybody. I hope to be a little more organized in the future with the podcast, with how we're going to talk about things. But if you really did like it, let me know with a comment down below. Let me know whatever stories you'd like to hear from me. Let me know what you guys would like to know about my life. Like, yeah, I mentioned briefly I'm getting married, and I didn't even touch on that. Maybe that's another day. Maybe another time we will talk about that. But guys, thank you so very much for all your support through the years. Thank you so very much for coming out to my streams each and every week. And I really appreciate you giving this podcast some love. If you guys are still here, shout out to all of you. You guys are truly the reason I'm able to do this, and I can't wait to see what this channel holds in its future. Take care, everyone. Have a great day, and thanks for listening.